Hi guys! Welcome to my channel, Airborne for Animals. My name is Lydia and in this video I'm going to be giving you my top 12 books to read if you love animals, with a few bonus ones on the end as well. As a young reader, I never thought I'd be interested in non-fiction. I mean, who would want to read about a boring person's life when there are fantasy adventures out there with dreamy romance plots? But then I discovered books about wildlife about 2 years ago, and I have been obsessed with them ever since. If you like the sounds of these books, I'll leave links to them in the description box down below so you can go and check them out. Just a disclaimer that the links might be affiliate links, and if you purchase through them, I get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. So without any further ado, let's just dive right in. I don't have all of the physical books with me because if you saw my travel tag, my books are split across Amsterdam and England. So I don't have all of them with me, and if I don't have them, then I will leave a picture on the screen of the cover so you know what book I'm talking about. So the first couple of books I am going to start with are books about wolves. The Rise of Wolf 8 by Rick McIntyre is one of my absolute favourite books, and it got me obsessed with the wolves of Yellowstone. So this story is about the reintroduction of wolves into the Yellowstone National Park in the USA. Rick McIntyre actually plays a huge role in the success of this reintroduction. He has been watching these wolves every single day for over 15 years. This is the first book of a 4-part series, the first one being The Rise of Wolf 8 and the second one being The Reign of Wolf 21. So Wolf 8 was one of the first wolves to be reintroduced to Yellowstone, and he actually formed the biggest pack that has ever been recorded. It's called the Druid Pack, and at one point it had a total of 37 members. The second book of this series is The Reign of Wolf 21, which is actually Wolf 8's offspring. And I'm desperate to get my hands on this book. I haven't read it yet, but I really want to. The Wolf by Nate Blakesley is also a book about the wolves of Yellowstone. This book is following a wolf called 06, who's actually one of the strongest female wolves that has ever been recorded in the national park. She is an inspiration and everyone absolutely loves her. She's actually quite famous in comparison to all of the other wolves, as is Wolf 8 and Wolf 21. So both of these books follow the reintroduction of the wolf, giving you information as well as anecdotes and stories which are just so much fun to read. This also goes into detail about the issues that the scientists faced during the reintroduction and that are still going on now, including politics and hunting. But also it gives you stories of how these wolves behave and relationships between the packs and between individuals of the group as well. I am so in love with both of these books and I highly recommend reading them. Next up, I'm moving on to my favourite author, Lawrence Anthony. He has written 3 books. We've got The Elephant Whisperer, Babylon's Ark, and The Last Rhino. As you can see, I only have one of the 3 books here with me, which sucks because I really want to reread them, but I haven't actually read this one yet, which is why I still have it with me now. Babylon's Ark is about the time that Anthony spent in Baghdad during the war. This is an incredibly inspiring piece of work, and as was the work that he was doing out there, he recognised that the animals in the zoo over in Baghdad were not receiving any care at all, so he decided that he would provide the care. With only a couple of people willing to help and practically no resources, this man built the zoo from the ground up, providing good welfare to all of the animals that were there. Everyone called it an absolutely impossible task, but he managed to do it anyway, and it is absolutely incredible. The other book that he wrote, The Elephant Whisperer, was about his time in South Africa, which is where he grew up. Since he owned his own piece of land in the African bush, he set up on the task of adopting this herd of elephants. However, these elephants proved to be a bit of a challenge, with escape artists, poachings, and babies. This book will absolutely melt your heart, but it will also get your heart racing in certain times, and you will just absolutely fall in love with this herd of wild rampant elephants who Anthony basically saved from being put down. His last book here is The Last Rhino. As I said, I haven't read this yet, but if it's anything like the other two, it's going to be awesome. So I'm going to read the back so you guys can know what it's about, because as I said, I haven't read it, so I don't really know. So it says, when he learned that there was only a handful of northern white rhinos left in the world, living in an area of the Congo controlled by the infamous Lord's Resistance Army, he was determined to save them from extinction. What followed was an extraordinary adventure as Lawrence headed into the jungle to ask the rebels to protect the rhino. He was also battling to keep his own animals alive during a terrible drought and to save the eyesight of the elephant matriarch Nana. So as you can see, this book does mix a little bit with the elephant whisperer, because Nana was the matriarch of the elephant herd that he saved, and it's just, I love him so much. Moving on to a different book, but set in the same area of the world, is Saving the Last Rhino by Grant Folds. So this book isn't as anecdotal as Lawrence Anthony's books, but it instead focuses on the rhino horn trade. The rhino horn trade is a huge part of rhino poaching, and it's one of the leading causes of their extinction. Uncovering why people are poached, he works on stopping poachers, but also spreading the word about what's happening to these endangered animals. If conservation is your jam, then this book is absolutely perfect. Saving the White Lions by Linda Tucker is the first book that I read that got me into this kind of genre. Tucker is a city girl, and she basically went on safari and decided not to leave. She ended up on this spiritual journey, and this led her to protecting the white lions. As a non-spiritual and religious person, I wasn't a huge fan of the wishy-washy, this lion was sent to protect me, but now I need to protect her kind of vibe that this was giving. In fact, it wasn't really a vibe, that was basically the whole reason why she was doing what she was doing. However, Tucker did actually contribute to the conservation of the white lions, especially on the political side of things, which was interesting to read about. So if you don't mind the kind of spiritual religious side of things, then I do recommend this book. So the last book I'm going to mention on the African side of things is Don't Run Whatever You Do by Peter Allison. This book is purely anecdotal, and it is so much fun to read. Especially if you plan on going on safari anytime soon, you really should read this. As an African safari guide in Botswana, Allison has a lot of stories to tell. From getting stuck in the Okavango Delta to being chased by a lion. This book is absolutely brilliant, and it's just so much fun to read. So most of the books that I've mentioned have been focusing on a particular animal, and this one is no exception. So Gorillas in the Mist by Diane Fossey, this focuses on the gorillas in Rwanda. My apologies if I'm not saying that right. The R and the W together is very confusing and I don't know how to pronounce it. However, the story of Diane Fossey is actually very tragic. After spending 13 years watching these incredible animals, getting to know them, and adding to the scientific knowledge that we have about them, Diane Fossey was actually murdered in her own home by poachers who were trying to attack the gorillas. And this makes what she's done so much more important, and I really think you should read this book so her work doesn't go forgotten. This book is a little bit difficult to read considering it was published in 1983, but it's still incredible and it's so interesting to read. Next, I'm moving on to 3 books which are a little bit unique. They give you information that you didn't know that you needed to know. And they're also a lot of fun to read. So the first one I'm going to mention is The Unexpected Truth About Animals by Lucy Cook. While reading this, you will learn about eels that have no sex organs and ostriches that swallow kilograms of stones. I love this book because it is a collection of the history of the science behind it all, as well as just some really interesting and random facts that are great conversation starters. Secondly is The Nature of Sex by Claire Bonder. Now, this book probably isn't for everyone, but as someone who studies physiology and behaviour, I found this one really interesting. It discusses how mating occurs across all species, ranging from the courtship behaviours to how the actual mating takes place. Have you ever watched the David Attenborough episode where the bird is doing like a really funky, funny dance, because that explains it perfectly. It's essentially the book version of that. Book on this list of 12 is The Re-Origin of Species by Tori Kornfeldt. My apologies if I'm saying that incorrectly again. I think that's how it's pronounced. All of the books previously mentioned are about alive, albeit endangered animals. This one is about dead animals. During this book, you'll basically learn that scientists learned nothing from Jurassic Park. And they still think it's a good idea to bring dinosaurs back, as well as other extinct species. So those are all the 12 books that I've read, but that isn't all of the books that I'm going to mention. I have a few bonus ones here that I have got and I'm planning to read, but I haven't quite got around to it yet. But I still want to share them with you just in case you are still looking for books in the same similar type of genre. If you have read any of them, be sure to leave a comment down below telling me what it's like, because I am desperate to know. The first up is The Brilliant Abyss by Helen Scales. From what I gather, this is an exploration of the ocean, an area larger and yet more uncovered than the moon. It dives into how the ecosystem of the ocean affects how the life on land runs. I'm excited to read this because I haven't actually read any books set in the ocean yet that I've actually enjoyed. I did read a book about octopuses, but it was terrible and I really don't recommend reading it. It was The Soul of the Octopus. I can't remember the name of the author. I'll leave like a picture of it. I didn't like that one at all because I actually felt like the welfare in the book was very poor. It was all about how she basically loved octopuses, so she worked with one in captivity, and yeah, I didn't like it at all. I thought it was an awful book. I mean, you're welcome, obviously you should give it a try if it's something you're interested in, but just keep in mind that it's poor welfare. So next up is Fathoms by Rebecca Giggs. This is also an ocean book that I really want to read, yet this one is set on humpback whales. So according to the back of this, it is a blend of natural history, philosophy and science to explore the question, well actually there's a few questions. How do whales experience environmental change? Has our connection to the animals been transformed by technology? And what future awaits us and them? So this book sounds quite scientific, but I am really excited to dive into it because I know, based on just skimming the back, it talks about like plastic pollutions and whaling ships and all this kind of stuff, which are all incredibly important aspects of whale conservation. So I am looking forward to diving into this one. The next one I'm going to mention is The Man Who Ate the Zoo by Richard Gerlig. So this is a bit of a strange name for a book, and I'm unsure exactly what this book is about, because Richard Gerlig basically founded fish farming, which fish farms are known for being very, very poor welfare and also quite bad for the planet. However, but it also says that this guy introduced the idea of marine conservation. So I feel like they're very different kind of aspects, but I can kind of see how they work together. So this is a biography about this man, and I feel like I need to read it to truly understand kind of what he's like and form an opinion on him. But yeah, there's also this one. The next two are by Peter Godfrey Smith. We've got Other Minds and we have Metazoa. Metazoans are basically all animals on the world, ranging from corals to humans to tigers to all this kind of stuff. We're all metazoans. And this book kind of explores everything. It focuses on the evolution of life, basically from sea corals to humans. It says on the back here that it gathers stories together to bridge the gap between matter and mind and address one of the most important philosophical questions: what is the origin of consciousness? So that sounds quite scientific, quite like a long read almost. It's not that big of a book, but it's one of those ones I think is going to take me like a while to get through, and I'm going to have to read it alongside another book anyway. But also I love it because it's got like really cute pictures in it as well, so that's quite cool. Look. His other book, Other Minds, focuses more on cephalopods. Cephalopods include animals like octopuses, squids, and cuttlefish. From what I gather, a little bit like his other book, this book is very scientifically written, which for me is amazing, but for other people it might not be your cup of tea. But I'll have to read it and let you know what I think. And the last book that I have here to mention for this whole video is The Greatest Show on Earth by Richard Dawkins. Now, this book is huge and it's a little bit intimidating. I mean, at least the size of the text isn't too big. This book is also based on evolution, and it is a compilation of layers of facts and evidence that come together to form this basically book that proves evolution exists. So those are all the books that I have to mention for you guys today. I really hope you enjoy them as much as I do, and if you have any books that I haven't mentioned, please comment them down below because I'm always on the lookout for more books kind of in this genre. Be sure to like, subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post, especially if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!